And welcome to Flyboys here in Beaver Creek. This is Wright State Women's Basketball Talk, and we've got the head coach right here with us tonight, Katrina Merriweather. After a rough weekend, Coach, well, it started out on a good note with a win over Milwaukee, but then a tough loss against Green Bay. The team now and still in first place by a half a game, now tied in the loss column with Green Bay. Both teams with 2 losses right now. Your team is 19-6 overall and 11-2 in league play. Now, let's talk about it. You said last week, you said going into this weekend, it was going to be very challenging for your team that's played extremely well throughout their Horizon League schedule. You go into Milwaukee, tough team. You beat them by 4 here at home. You battled. You got to win there. Then you have to go up to the Crest Center at Green Bay where it's tough for anybody to win.
I tell you, we're obviously very frustrated with the performance. And no player that I know intends on going in and not making 3 for an entire 40 minutes. But what this team has been able to do is go up to Wisconsin, which we have gone up there multiple times and come back 0-2, and split a weekend that was pretty tough because I think that Milwaukee was in a place where they're fighting for their lives, and so they gave us a really great game, and I feel like we really responded then. I do think that it hurts on that road trip that you played 2 really good teams. It's the only pairing that's like that. You've got IUPUI and their pairing is UIC and they're 10th. So it's different going up there. And I think the fans, I think the band, all that stuff, it's a factor. No matter how much you tell your kids and you prepare for it, it's just you don't know until you see it. That, however, is no excuse for all those offensive rebounds.
Well, It's a good experience, too, because we've talked about it this year on several occasions about, learning a lesson. And obviously, as a coach, you like to learn a lesson and win. But you can also gather some information about your team, what you can do, even just from an X's and O's standpoint, also how the team itself can, prepare themselves for a situation like that in the future.
Absolutely. And again, we got together today. It's our infamous accountability day where we kind of collect all the information from our support staff and anyone who's missed treatment, anyone who has any type of zeros academically, we run for those. So we did that today, so right on time. And then when we fall short of our goals, which is keeping people under 60 points, having 12 and less turnovers, making more free throws than the other team shoots, and out-rebounding people, there's a consequence for not doing what we're supposed to do. So we did that today, and then we watched the whole game, and I think that it was very enlightening for the girls to see how discombobulated we looked, offensively, and how we just couldn't quite get right. So we'll go to work on that tomorrow.
What kind of feedback did you get from the student athletes?
Again, they're disappointed. Again, I don't know any player that goes in and intends on missing shots. But what I wanted them to walk out of there with where there were so many 50-50 balls that we didn't get. There were offensive rebounds that we gave up. What I cannot ever accept is we're closer to the ball and the other team gets it. So I think that is what they saw. That was what was important. Let's not put so much focus and emphasis on we couldn't make a shot. There are other things that you do when that happens, and I think they walked away with a great understanding of that today.
We've heard Coach Nagy talk about it during the season with the men's team. Not only, is it difficult, how are you going to react after a win, and how do you react, after a loss? Because kind of 2 in the same, although you'd rather win, obviously, but how does your team go about getting prepared for that next game?
Well, I think that we can worry about Northern Kentucky in a couple days. What we're going to do tomorrow is strictly focus on Wright State and really concentrate on being fundamental and disciplined. I think sometimes when you start winning a bunch of games, you get away with some things, and because you win, you start to feel like they're not as important. And so we've got these moments against Green Bay where we're not rebounding with 2 hands, where we're not sprinting to the right spot, and those things matter when you play a great defensive team. And while Green Bay may struggle to score, what they've always been is a very, very good defensive team. And one thing that we had to explain to them, too, we took a lot of the same shots that we took when we played them the first time. They just didn't go in.
You're right.
You know, so we have to make sure that that doesn't turn into a mental situation where now we're second guessing ourselves and we're hesitant. We just need to keep attacking and being aggressive.
But there's really nothing you can do about shots. If the shots are there, they're in a position to make good shots. I would imagine most of those shots your team has made a good percentage of all year long. You really can't think about it. If you're good shooters, you know it's going to go down the next time.
Yeah, and that's just how it has to be. And I will even say that when I looked up and we were over 19, I thought, shoot, we should have probably stopped at like 9. You know, but because you have shooters, you don't ever want them to think that you don't believe they can make a shot. More importantly, you don't want them to think that the ball's not going to go in the basket. And so there were times when I could have pulled them back a little bit, and I didn't. I think it's important for Mac and for Mikhail, even Anijah Harris coming off the bench, for them to know that they've got the green light when they're open and their hands and feet are ready. Let's shoot the shot. And again, a lot of them looked exactly like the ones we took the first time we played, and they just didn't go down.
Did you see any hesitancy as the game went on, not being able to hit those shots at times where they're thinking, well, maybe I'm not hitting my shot, I'm going to pass it to somebody else?
Absolutely. And we got a team that has really good chemistry. And not only do they not want to perform bad for themselves, they don't want to perform bad for each other. You know, so then you start getting the, well, I'm not going to shoot it, you shoot it, you know, type thing. So then we start turning the ball over. This team had 19 turnovers. We don't turn the ball over that much. You know, we average under 12 a game, and there's a lot of games where we're sitting around 7, 8, or 9. And that's because we play so fast and so hard. We'll turn it over in transition a time or two, or we have some kids that may travel because they kind of get excited. But 19 turnovers is so uncharacteristic of this team that there's no other way to explain it besides we got a little hesitant and didn't execute the way we needed to.
Yeah, you're right. You never want to turn that ball over that many times against any opponent. And someone like Green Bay, you don't want to give them more opportunities to score than you because of turnovers.
Absolutely. You know, so, you know, as disappointed as we all are, you have to keep it in perspective. You know, like you mentioned, we are still in first place. Yep. We have split with Green Bay. If the season ended tomorrow, we have the tiebreaker. There is still history to be made. We have not lost a conference home game. You know, we've got 3 more left.
Right.
You know, Wright State Women's Basketball has never been a number 1 seed in the tournament. You know, so there are things that are still very, very possible, and those are the things that we're going to focus on moving forward. We can't change anything that happened on Saturday.
And I got to imagine the seniors on your team right now are very cognizant of that, and that's something that they're emphasizing to their teammates.
Oh, there's no question. And because nothing hurt, like it hurts you for them. You know, for them to have their last trip up to Green Bay and to go up there after we had beat them by 18 here, and the idea of actually sweeping them because you now know you're capable. See, normally when you go up there, you lost to them the first time already. You know, so that's not an option. And it was actually Mac who said, you know, we normally go up here and go 0-2. And I said, you know, I hadn't really thought about it that way. And it's not just because they're good; it's also because it's 8 hours away. You know, it's the travel. It's a lot of things. You're just not playing at home.
Right.
But
that's hard to digest, though. You know, you don't like moral victories, obviously. You know, but then again, you have to look at the long run, and you can see those type of things, and you look for positives. Coach, right now, before we go to break, we do have some highlights from the weekend, too. I imagine Greg will be starting with Milwaukee, correct? All right, let's go to it right now for the folks here at Flyboys in Beaver Creek. We'll try to describe the best we can on the radio.
And there's a 3 going down. Could have just saved a couple of those for Saturday. Deja Evans came off the bench and gave us a lot of energy. That was a really hard right-hand drive there. Mikhail in her signature floater in the corner. And you got Mac shooting a deep 3 there.
She didn't even think about it. She grabbed it and shot it.
And I'm telling you, those are the same shots we had on Saturday, you know. And there's Deja Evans again with an and-1 driving it hard left this time.
That's a tough shot that she took like there.
She's so athletic. All she does is explode over people.
You like to see a lot of those.
Yeah, Emily,
turnovers.
and she did it a time or 2 against Green Bay, just getting the steal and laying it in. Mikhail Miller hitting a 3 over in the corner.
Had good spacing right there.
Yeah, and and that was something that we struggled with a little bit too. There's Emily with the pull up and transition. That shot, that's a very, very high percentage shot for her. Mikhail finding Emily in transition for another 3. A pick and roll action with Deja missing the layup. Imani cleaning it up for her, getting an and-1.
Your team has rebounded well this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're top 10 in the country. rebounding the ball, and that's why Saturday again was a little bit of a disappointment. There's Mac, and that's in the first half, getting a steal and laying it in. Angel Baker, who has great court vision, finding Imani Partlow down low.
Raiders had a 2-point lead after the first half.
Yes.
Both teams were having trouble scoring in that first half.
There's Mikal with her pull-up in transition, too. Again, there's this little ISO play we run for Angel that's very, very difficult to stop, but she kisses it off the backboard there. Tyler with an and one post move, taking it strong to the basket. And it just wasn't enough of that. We had some moments, but it just wasn't enough.
And you already went through the video today with the team, right? And you went over the game itself. And now you put that behind you right now. It's like, okay, it's done. I know you said earlier you won't start thinking about Northern Kentucky for a few days.
Yeah, after today.
Okay.
But we needed to come back and see that game. And again, not because we lost and not just because we scored 37 points, but because of how we lost. And so as upsetting as it is that we didn't make shots, it's even more upsetting, again, that we gave up so many offensive rebounds, that we didn't get the critical 50-50 balls. Because, again, defensively, I even thought we were pretty decent. They scored 56 points. Our goal is to keep people under 60, and we normally can score in the high 60s and 70s. It's not really a problem. So, it was tough. It was tough for me to watch because that's now the second time I've watched it. And it's just ugly.
But you can put it behind you right now. Yeah. And the focus starting tomorrow, as you say, is the Norse of Northern Kentucky, a team that's very scrappy, as you told us in the last couple of years. We'll talk about that game this coming Saturday afternoon at Wright State's Nutter Center. When we return, it's the Katrina Merriweather Show. We are live at Fly Boys in Beaver Creek. This is Wright State University basketball.
The Horizon League's men's and women's basketball championships roll into Little Caesars Arena March 11th and 12th. Don't miss your chance to see the surviving 4 finalists of the Horizon League battle for an automatic berth in the NCAA tournament. $15 general admission and $25 two-day passes are on sale now. Don't miss out on the madness. Visit horizonleague.com or call 313-471-7575.
And we are back here at Fly Boys, and Katrina Merriweather is here with us, the star of the show. Of course, we'll be back again next week. And then one more week after that, we take a week off on March 4th. That's the scheduled final show before the end of the season. Wow, we are getting close to the end. We are in the second phase of the Horizon League schedule. You played a couple of road games this weekend, but it's back home against the Norse of Northern Kentucky. Tell us a little bit about the Norse this year. You beat them earlier this year on the road, but it's a team that you always tell your team to be ready for because they play hard and they're very scrappy.
They do. They play really hard, and their coach is really tough and hard-nosed too, so they're a lot like her. But they're undersized in the post, and they're aggressive, and they're going to switch defenses and try to keep you off balance, and you just really have to play with a lot of composure and make sure that, again, you box out and you rebound because that's always going to be huge. And obviously we'll plan on making some more shots.
This year they're 6-7 in league play. They've lost 5 out of 6 on the road, but then again, they can have some fans come up here because it's so close because they are the travel partners for Wright State, both in men's and women's basketball. So your team obviously is going to be ready. They're going to be hungry, obviously, after coming back from that game, against Green Bay. What are some of the things that Northern Kentucky does, defensively to your team? Because you talked about offensively. They have a couple good shooters on that team.
They do. They have a really good point guard that I like a lot that can shoot it, that defends pretty well, too. Every year she recruits a player or two. And so they stay really young, but they're really talented. And so you catch them on a night. Again, this is a group that has beaten IUPUI, where their 5 player steps out and was 0 for 18 before that game and makes 4 threes. Just because they're young, they're super unpredictable. So you sit there with the scouting report and you say, oh, these are the tendencies, and then you look up in the last game they played, the person who hasn't made a 3 makes 3 of them. And that's kind of the story of them. And so you have to know the scouting report, and you have to follow the game plan, which again is not something we were so hot at on Saturday. So we're going to continue to work to finish off the season, making sure we do what we're supposed to do.
That's something too you don't want to talk about. You don't want to put yourself in a position to where somebody like that who they don't count on an opponent, in this case Northern Kentucky like you talked about, but any opponent. That's why you want to be aggressive early on and get a big lead so you don't have that other team an opportunity to do something like that.
And I think that a lot of the time we come out the gate and we are really prepared, scouting-wise, and we're really locked in. What it seems like is once we get rolling and we get that lead, we get very, very lax. I start experimenting with some different lineups. Then that's so that we can get the bench developed as well as giving the starters some rest so that they don't have all these miles on them by the time we hit the tournament. Again, that's just a decision that I made, and I always say I hope at the end when we look back at it I don't regret it. But I do think that it's good for our current team and the future of our program, then to get those kids in the rotation. And unfortunately, if anything were ever to happen, we have some people who've been playing some valuable minutes in the game.
And it shows obviously that you have confidence, in them, and that's so important, especially for these young players, to have confidence to be able to be out there. Like you said, if for some unforeseen reason that you need to count on them for any reason, injury or whatever, or somebody fouls out, you know that they're ready to play.
And it's a good feeling. It really is. And they don't get treated, like the second group or the reserves. They know that the expectation is that you go in and they should do something different, something that the first group doesn't do per se. I think we have a lot of athletes that come off the bench, and it's great for them to press and to try again to create some offense from defense. And they do give us a different look, like you saw earlier with Deja Evans being able to drive it and get in there. I think that it's important that we do that we continue to develop them all throughout the season. I think that that'll just benefit us in the long run.
Development is all part of it being a coach. We talk about, you have to go out and recruit. Obviously, that's so important, but there are so many responsibilities, not only as a head coach, but also for your staff. And one of those is development through the season. Maybe we can talk about right now as we get closer to the end of the regular season, the development of some of these players this year. Are they pretty much on schedule where you'd want to see them right now? Are they above what you expected for them, or some just kind of like, not doing as well as you want them to?
I think that we've got the same challenges that everyone does. For every freshman, like an Angel Baker that's averaging 23 minutes a game, her season's about 1 week from being over in high school. So we're trying to hang on to her. I was giving her a hard time, like, hey, you got to stay locked in. And she's, what do you mean? So, well, now you're on the side, and when I'm not paying attention to you, you're shooting reverse layups on the side basket. Like you got to come back in. And I think that it's, I'm sure everybody's having that challenge with their freshmen, whose seasons are usually over here in the next week or so. But I think that Deja Evans has so much ability. What we talk about a lot of the time is being consistent and reliable. And that's more than just basketball. It's how you handle yourself off the floor. It's your academics. And I think that that's something we try to really, really impress on them is, if you want me to be able to rely on you, play you in all these games, well, I got to believe that you're going to be available for the entire season. So that means that everything that you do doesn't just affect you, it affects this team too. And we really, really try, the entire staff does, taking the time with them and going out to lunch or sitting in the office and talking to them, making them understand how important they are. So that development for me, I think it's happening. I think everybody's trying, but consistency would be great. Being able to sub someone in off the bench and being able to rely on them to be consistent in their effort and what they can produce.
The underclassmen, especially the freshmen that you talk about, what you just said a few moments ago, is that the biggest challenge for the first year, even second year players who haven't seen a lot of minutes? Because like you said, they were in high school, like a year ago, and to play this many minutes and this deep into the season, what do you do about that? Is that why you said earlier you kind of watch their minutes early on and you don't try to push them too much?
It's what I decide to do. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I do think that it helps us, and it helps the kids that we have, and maybe even the type of kids that we recruit. It's such a long season, and we're dealing with these millennials that are used to doing kind of what they want to do. They're as vocal as they want to be. We talked about social media already. And to get them to continue to buy in regardless of how many minutes they play, regardless if they even get in the game or not. Like, those things are all very unique challenges as you move forward, because you're dealing with 15 different personalities. We've got 3 kids that are redshirting. Well, they need to be good in practice too. Just because they're not playing in the games doesn't mean that they're not important. It doesn't mean they don't have a responsibility to help us get better. So the development key, I think that there's some up and down and some in and out, and it would be nice if we could just kind of hunker down here in this last 5 and everybody show up every minute of every practice for every drill. And I think that'll put us in a position to continue to get better, even though it's towards the end.
Now, we've been talking about, basketball development, but also here over this past weekend, of course, your team was still coming back from Green Bay, but student-athlete academic recognition night here at Wright State. Got a great streak going right now with student-athletes above 3.0 here in the athletic office, and it says a lot, from the leadership, Bob Grant, all the way down, and the great help that these student-athletes are able to get, because let's face it, time restraints. They got to be able to manage their time correctly to be able to do well in the classroom and also perform on the court.
We talk about, you and I have already talked about recruiting a lot, and I think that we're able, and I'm allowed to do something very, very unique with Bob Grant that he allows me to do at Wright State, and that is we have a lot of players that are second chance kids. They've been somewhere else and they haven't been successful. They maybe didn't have the smoothest career in high school. Maybe they made a mistake here or there. And I don't get discouraged from recruiting those kids. And a lot of the time those kids come from households where academics are not important. And they come here and they have a story like Kim Demings, which is having a below a 2.0 when we first start recruiting her. Then she gets here to Wright State and she has a 3.0 the entire time. And she's actually going to graduate with her master's here at the end of the year. And not a lot of athletic directors allow coaches to do that. They kind of get on you all the time about, well, do they have a 3.5? Well, let's be realistic about some stuff. If you're going to be a really, really good basketball player, the level in which we need to recruit to compete for a championship, you're giving a lot of time to basketball and athletics. Well, that's different than the kid that gets out of school at 3 o'clock and then goes home and studies for 4 hours. So there's a little bit of give and take there where you have something that's taking up your time. Well, despite that, 11 of the 13 had over a 3.0. 8 have an cumulative over a 3.0. And the ones that didn't, well, they try really hard, as everybody's kind of born with different stuff, right? And I think that is what's really cool and unique about what I'm allowed to do in recruiting with our kids at Wright State, and that is give people an opportunity to get an education and something that they really, really value.
The operative word being opportunity. A little bit late for the break. We'll be back with a final word. We're talking women's basketball at Wright State with the head coach, Katrina Merriweather. We'll continue from Fly Boys in Beaver Creek. This is Wright State University basketball.
What does it mean to be a pioneer, reaching your full potential? It means being bold. No, bigger than bold, monumental. Where would we be if we ceased at the first "you can't do that"? How would we advance if we stopped in our tracks every time we heard "hey you, move back"? We develop thick skin when opposition wishes we'd stay soft. Against resistance, our persistence will pay off. At Wright State, our goal remains central. We are the pioneers of potential.
And welcome back. Good crowd here tonight at Fly Boys. We're back again next Friday, beginning at 5:30 with the Katrina Merriweather Show. Still with us here for the next couple of minutes before we'll talk men's basketball with head coach Scott Nagy. And, of course, Jim Brown will be joining us, too, here live. And Coach Merriweather, very interesting. We can talk more about that, next week, with the type of players and the academic recognition. Kudos to you, your staff, and the entire athletic department, for what they've been able to achieve here. I think it's amazing. I think people need to know more about that. But in the last couple of minutes, I know a lot of fans like to know about, the players who have already signed coming in next year, their status, because they're getting towards the end of their high school schedule.
Yeah, we're, again, really excited for Kaylin Pendleton. She's from Michigan. And she's a 6'1.5", again, super strong, athletic kid that is going to play the 4 and 5 for us. Not to mention Gabby Redden, who's transferred from Marist, and our sports information department did a great feature story on her. If you get a chance, everybody should really read it. She's an interesting kid that wants to be a senator. So it's a good read. And then Summer Blevins, who's from Pleasant, Ohio, is coming out of Wabash Valley Community College, and I'm actually going to get to go see her on Wednesday. So we're really excited. Then we have a couple of commitments I can't talk about because they haven't signed just yet. But we're excited about everybody that's coming in.
And it kind of goes along with what you were talking about before the break, but as far as recruiting is concerned, you can use that by the success. These kids have taken the opportunities, to come here, and you can say, see, you can do more than just play basketball and excel here and be a champion on the court, but also, gain your confidence, and think about something for your life's work later on. And, you know, that must be a good selling point, especially when you go into the homes and talk to the parents.
It is, like we talk about it. In women's basketball, there's no gold at the end of the rainbow, no pot of gold there. Like, our kids make a couple $1,000s a month if they decide to go overseas and play. It's not a $10,000, $15,000 situation. You're going because you want to continue playing and because you want to get an experience at another place, in essence, maybe learn a different culture. Like, that's the benefit on the women's side. So the degree that they get, the memories they create, the networking, the closeness of our community, in my mind, where we have a senior who is interviewing right now, and of course Bob Grant, hey, what do you want to do? You know, hey, send me your resume. You know, and the kid's gotten 2 callbacks already. You know, I think that is what you get when you're a part of Wright State and our family, instead of maybe being in a place where you're just kind of there to be just an athlete and that's it. So I think the environment that we have, our kids really appreciate it. I think they benefit from it, and that's why we have so many that are excited to come back and hang out with us.
Coach Katrina Merriweather, as always, very enlightening. Look forward to next week, and also Saturday, your team takes on the Northern Kentucky University. Best of luck. All right, stay with us here at Fly Boys. Coming up next, it's the Scott Nagy Show. We're talking Wright State men's basketball. That's coming up in a couple of minutes. This is Wright State University basketball.